Hey everyone, Emily Baker here with Erin Simons with the Mega Listing Agent. Erin, today we wanted to talk about something that is happening. I mean, it's real out there, and it is that our markets have shifted.
They have. I mean, in a lot of markets, and not every market, Emily, but in a lot of markets, we've been seeing more inventory. Days on market is creeping up, which means as the competition is increasing, prices are starting to soften. And Emily, for some markets, it's happening across the whole market. And yet in some markets, you've got pockets that are still very much a seller's market. And though you're starting to see some pockets that are turning into more of a shift in market as well. So it's not one size fits all across the country, yet predominantly we are hearing this more and more. Would you agree?
Yes. And I want to highlight that one of the questions that we get asked, we actually got asked this yesterday, is how do I communicate to a seller that the market softened or shifted? And the best way to do that is to go through the data, right? Facts trump feelings. Go through the national trends. When they see the year over year number of home sales and they see the decline and it looks like, we're sliding down, they can then internalize and self discover, right? That through the facts that the market's changing, right? Go through the local trends.
Yeah, and we find that if we're in a listing appointment and we have that seller who inevitably will say, well, can we just start out higher? We can always come down later. Alarm bells should be going off in our heads because we might have gotten away with that in previous markets, but in this market, there's a huge danger to it. And Emily, one of the things that we used to do at listing appointments is it's one thing to have the conversation, yet we used to actually draw this freehand while we were in front of them, because what we find is that when we can show a visual to a seller, it's a lot easier for them to understand the concept that we're trying to describe.
Yeah.
Because yeah, no, I was just going to say it's counterintuitive, right? We as real estate agents know because we're in this every day that a lower asking price ends up in a higher sales price, which seems very like you got to sit there and think about that. Wait a minute. So if I start my house out lower, I will actually sell it for more later? And the answer is yes. Yet it's hard to conceptualize that unless you draw it out, which is what we've done here, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Because the listing price is merely just the marketing price. So walk us through what this graph means.
So here's what this means. So let's assume that we're with the seller and what the market's telling us is that the property should be priced at 500,000.
Mhm.
And this seller, like a lot of sellers, they might be stuck on, well, we can we start at 525? Can we start at 525? Here's the problem, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if we start at 525. You see, we're in a shifting market, right? So if we start out at 525 when the market's telling us 500 is the right number, and we now get out there 2, 3, 4 weeks, what's going to happen is if we're not getting the activity we need, you might finally come back and say, okay, you know what, you were right. Let's make that adjustment. Let's get it back down to 500, which is what you told us when we met. The problem is when we met with them, right, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, it was 500. But since then, the market has started to move away because more competition has come on the market. Other properties have reduced their prices or have since closed at lower prices. So that 500 may no longer be valid. So they reduce it down to 500. Yet again, we're still not at the market. So now another 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks goes by. And now we have to make a second adjustment. And now maybe the property goes under contract and sells at 475. Now, Emily, if they would have priced it at the market price from day one, maybe it sells at 490. However, 490 is $15,000 more than 475.
Mhm.
So if they price at 525, they're going to sell at 475. Whereas if they price at 500, they might sell at 490. So that's what we mean by a lower asking price ends up in a higher sales price because 500,000 is lower than 525 and 490 is more than 475. So it's counterintuitive, but when you draw this out, it's simple to see. If I list at 500, I'll sell for 490. But if I list at 525, it's likely I'm going to chase it down to 475.
Yeah. And what I love about this too is it goes hand in hand with the expectations that we set at the listing appointment in terms of 3 to 5 showings per week for 2 weeks. If we're not getting that, it's 10% off, right? If we are getting some of those, right, but we're not getting all of those leading indicators, then we're 5% off. And that's really goes hand in hand with the math and walking them through the paths in the math when it comes to making the most amount of money. Because at the end of the day, that's all the seller wants is they want to make the most amount of money in today's market.
Yeah, and let me just make one more point because again, that seller assumes that we start out higher at 525 and no problem. We can always come back down to your price. Let me just say, in real practice, it's very hard to get them from their price at 525 on that first reduction down to what the market's now telling them, which is below 500. Good luck with that conversation with the seller. It rarely goes very well. Would you agree?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's also very powerful to share the number of price adjustments week over week in the MLS or in the last 30 days to also give them a visual of a lot of the active inventory. While we've seen an increase and there are more listings on the market than there have been in a few years, a lot of the active inventory is overpriced as well, and they're chasing the market down. So in order for you to maximize your equity and make the most amount of money, let's do the right thing. Let's price it where the market is, such that we can engage in our marketing plan to attract the most amount of buyers to ultimately net you top dollar.